Hello, this is Lisa, CEO of Site for Wight, welcoming you to this week's Talking News. Firstly, apologies for those who did not hear last week's report. There were a few technical difficulties at the last moment, but I am here this week, sitting in a very wet and windy Friday morning. I'm delighted to say that Karen is settling in so well. She's visited several members for varying different reasons, which is exactly the reason why Karen has joined the team. Also this week, Striders endured the wind and the rain with their 5-mile walk starting at the Horse and Groom over in West Wight. Each Strider is accompanied with one-to-one sighted guide support, with people using long canes, dogs, and enjoying the real fresh air that the Isle of Wight has to offer. Also, please don't forget to send in your short stories. Our annual story writing competition gives you the opportunity to have your story published and read out by one of our celebrity readers. Please send your entries in to admin@iwsb.org.uk with all of the terms and conditions on our website, or if you need further help, please don't hesitate to call the office on 522205. Finally, this week sees the clocks going back this evening on Saturday, and of course Sunday is Halloween. The traditional way to let people know whether you are able to welcome trick-or-treaters is to put a pumpkin outside the house. Please, everybody, stay safe and enjoy Halloween. Thank you, Lisa.
More travel misery as Smallbrook Lane to be closed completely for 3 weeks. From Island Echo, read by Chris. Motorists face yet more disruption in ride as Smallbrook Lane is to be completely closed next week and again for 2 weeks later on in November. The initial plan was to complete the roundabout improvement works under temporary traffic lights with a one-way system on Smallbrook Lane for a period of 6 months. However, the Isle of Wight Council has now taken the decision to close Smallbrook Lane in both directions for 3 weeks next month. From Monday the 1st of November, SGN will undertake utility works across the carriageway for a period of 1 week. During this time, Smallbrook Lane will be closed to all motorists with traffic diverted via Green Lane to Brading. This will lead to greater amounts of traffic on the main Sandown to Ryde road, as well as through the St John's area of Ryde for those travelling towards Westridge from the west. However, temporary traffic lights just up the road at West Street near Swanmore will add to the misery for motorists, with lengthy delays already being experienced due to the footway works taking place. From the 22nd of November, Smallbrook Lane will once again be closed in both directions, but this time for a period of 2 weeks as Southern Water complete their utility works alongside the likes of Scottish and Southern Electricity Networks and BT. Outside of these closures, Smallbrook Lane will remain one way from the west until April 2022. The major improvement scheme is on track, with the removal of vegetation and trees now completed. Kevin Burton, Network Manager for Island Roads, has said, "We are making good progress with the work to improve safety at this well-used junction and are grateful to residents for their patience and cooperation so far." The work to reroute the major utility services in the area is significant, and we are grateful to those involved for working with us to coordinate this work in a timely way. This should mean far less disruption, avoiding the need for multiple road closures for those residents, with the work instead being completed in 2 shorter phases.
Hello, this is an article from On the Right, read by Sue. 2 golds and a silver for Vectis Radio at National Awards. Off the charts, says station manager. To come away with 1 reward is a great achievement, so for Vectis Radio to bring home 2 golds and a silver is off the chart. Vectis Radio, the island's community radio station, has been awarded 2 golds and 1 silver at this year's National Community Radio Awards in Coventry. Nadine Dorris, Secretary of State for the Department of Culture, Media and Sport, said, "In a video played at the start of these awards, it's so great to see such a huge variety of nominees, and you all thoroughly deserve your nominations." Calvin Curry walked away with the first gold in the station's history, being awarded Sage Person of the Year. After receiving 2 silvers in the previous 2 ceremonies, Kelvin said, "I am very proud and privileged to have been acknowledged by the community radio industry." There was more gold in one of the prestigious categories, the Community Development Project of the Year, which went to the Vectis Radio 4PS Radio Training School. Station manager Ian Mack said, "To finally get gold after gaining 2 bronze awards and a silver award in the previous 3 years was very emotional. To finally receive this award on behalf of the youngsters involved, recognising the work we all do within our community, is off the chart. I am hoping this will generate more funds for the project." There was also a Silver Innovation Award for short breaks in lockdown, another 4Ps project. Danielle Wharton from the Isle of Wight Council's Children's Services said, "Congratulations to you personally and to your team. This is fantastic news. It shows how hard you all work through a really tough time to provide your activity remotely to ensure the young people had consistency in a time of such uncertainty."
Hello, this is Steve reading a story from Isle of Wight Radio, headlined "Controversial Plans to Transform Ride Interchange Given Approval." Controversial plans to change Ride Esplanade were given the go-ahead at Monday's Isle of Wight Council meeting of leading Cabinet members. Work on the interchange is due to begin at the start of next year, and will see Ride Bus Station remodelled, a new access road to the pier, and a signalled crossing installed at the bottom of George Street. Following a full review of responses to the Council's consultation, 20 changes were made to the highways schemes, which included losing some parking, installing traffic calming features, and retention of the much-loved tulip tree. Speaking at the Cabinet meeting, Councillor Phil Jordan, the Member for Infrastructure and Transport, said, "We said when we did the consultation we would listen to people, and we have been able to do that within the funding parameters. The list is evident of the changes to the benefit of the community, asked for by people responding to the consultation." Councillor Julie Jones-Evans, the Cabinet Member for Regeneration, said, "This is a new chapter in the transport area of Ryde, and as an administration we welcome the new facilities for walking and cycling and improved buses. This has to be good for the whole island and transport. Despite the changes, objectors are still unhappy with the plans. They say all the major failings, including those of safety, congestion and discrimination, remain. One of the major points of contention is the demolition of the public toilets and cafe at Western Gardens. The Isle of Wight Council says this has partially been done to allow visitors from the mainland a view of the town up Union Street, which is currently blocked by the building. They want pedestrians to head in that direction. Although plans have not yet been unveiled by South Western Railway for the revamp of the train station, Councillor Jordan said toilets and a cafe provision will be included. Speaking at an earlier corporate scrutiny committee, Councillor Michael Lilly, the Mayor of Ryde, said the money saved by Ryde Town Council on the Western Gardens public toilets could lead to new facilities in the centre of the town. The £10 million Ryde Gateway scheme is being funded by the Department for Transport to improve connectivity, and will also see work done by White Link to the former tramway pier and South Western Railway to the Esplanade train station. The project is now said to be on a very tight timeframe, with all aspects of the connectivity scheme needed to be completed by April 2023. Final designs will be approved by the Director of Neighbourhoods.
This is Den reading an article from the Island Echo. Historic covenant may not be enough to save Chillerton and Rookley Primary School. A historic covenant that it was hoped would save an Isle of Wight primary school threatened with closure may not be the answer campaigners are hoping for, the Isle of Wight Council has said. The authority's leading cabinet members have approved a 6-week consultation on the future of Chillerton and Rookley Primary School, and one of the options is its closure. From the 1st of November, the options to be consulted on are: leave both schools open and federated, amalgamate Chillerton and Rookley Primary School with Godshill Primary School and close the former, amalgamate Chillerton and Rookley with God's Hill and close the latter. Seek an academy free school sponsor for Chillerton and Rookley, and if successful, defederate the school from the Stenbury Federation. Defederate Chillerton and Rookley from the Stenbury Federation and reform it as a standalone primary school. Seek another local maintained school to federate with Chillerton and Rookley. Set up provision for flexi schooling on the Chillerton and Rookley site to sit alongside full-time provision. Council officers have not ruled out receiving other viable suggestions for the school's future. The Stenbury Federation, which runs the school, approached the council in January to request Chillerton and Rookley and God's Hill and Primary School be amalgamated with God's Hill Primary. A Save Our School campaign has been fighting that proposal and found a covenant on the land registry that it says ties the site to use as a primary. Campaign spokesperson Keith Herbert previously said he had spoken to 3 property law experts who agreed that use of the land was restricted. However, Councillor Debbie Andre, the Isle of Wight Council's education lead, told Monday's meeting she had been advised the covenant alone would not prevent the school from being closed. She said the site must be used for education, not the building. In May, one of Councillor Andre's first moves was to defer the public consultation. She said the new administration that runs County Hall wanted to be absolutely sure it had listened to all sides. Pupil numbers have steadily dropped at Chillerton and Rookley Primary, with only 22 children on roll at the start of the 2021 autumn term, compared to its capacity to teach 91. The school is also facing funding budget challenges, with a forecast deficit in 2022-23 of £118,057. Its sister school, God's Hill, also faces a deficit of under £100,000 by 2022-23, reducing it from £136,052 in the 2020-21 school year. Following the consultation, a report will be presented to the Council's Cabinet in the spring and the next step will be considered.
Hundreds referred to Isle of Wight Long COVID Clinic from Isle of Wight Radio, read by Chris. There are 200 patients using the Isle of Wight's Long COVID Clinic. The service launched early this year, as Isle of Wight Radio previously reported, to help people dealing with long-term effects of coronavirus. Although many patients recover with support and rest, others who have caught the illness have reported persistent symptoms after it's gone. The service is available by GP referral only, and appointments will be available both face-to-face and virtually. Sarah Kearney, Long COVID Service Lead, said, "We are delighted to be delivering this service on the island 5 days a week, Monday to Friday, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Accessibility to this service is important to us, and we triage all GP referrals sent through. We are here to support those in need and urge anyone experiencing symptoms of COVID-19 for more than 12 weeks to contact their GP. Common long COVID symptoms, as per the NHS, include extreme tiredness, fatigue, shortness of breath, chest pain or tightness, problems with memory and concentration, brain fog, difficulty sleeping, insomnia, heart palpitations, dizziness, pins and needles, joint pain, depression and anxiety, tinnitus, earaches, feeling sick, diarrhea, stomach aches, loss of appetite, a high temperature, cough, headaches, sore throat, and changes to sense of smell or taste."
Hello, this is an article from Isle of Wight Radio, read by Sue. Isle of Wight's £6 million levelling up cash plans to make East Cowes centre of job creation. The Isle of Wight is to receive just under £6 million in government funding. The announcement comes as part of the Chancellor's budget, which was revealed on Tuesday. A bid to the government's Levelling Up Fund was submitted by the Isle of Wight Council last year. It has now been accepted, and I will see £5.8 million go to East Cowes. Speaking to Isle of Wight Radio, Isle of Wight MP Bob Seeley said the money would help to renovate town's Columbine building and the Esplanade. He said he wants East Cowes to be a centre of job creation and wealth creation. It's for projects in and around East Cowes to look at the Columbine building and various other buildings the council has bought. This is a project the previous administration and I worked on, and this administration has supported as well. We want East Cowes to be centre of job creation and wealth creation on the island, for shipbuilding, but also for start-up office space and house building as well. This money will go towards making that dream and hope a reality. It is important for the island and is also important to East Cowes. I'm very aware of the pain that folks there have had with the floating bridge and other issues, so I'm hoping this is some good news for the folks of East Cowes, but also the island. This is not the end of the story, but it's the beginning. We will be putting in another Levelling Up bids, and I'm sure linked to Newport and other ambitious agendas on the island, but it's a good news day today. The Isle of Wight Council purchased the historic Columbine building last year. 3 other sites, the Victoria Barracks building, the Albany warehouse, and a Maresfield Road site currently used for car parking were also included in the deal. Mr. Seeley said the Columbine building will continue to be used for shipbuilding. Wight Shipyard currently use the site. It's about improving the building and improving office spaces around the building. There will also be some works to improve East Cowes seafront as well, so there is a series of ideas linked to this. But the good news is we now have the money to make this a reality. Councillor Julia Jones-Evans has also welcomed the announcement. Tweeting Mr. Seeley, she said, "Thank you, Bob. More good news for Alliance administration dedicated delivering for the island and providing independent can get things done."
Hi everyone, this is Steve reading a story from the On the Wight news site headlined "Floating Bridge. A bit of light at the end of this very dark and very long tunnel," says leader. An independent review and legal mediation will determine the next step in the long battle to sort out the Isle of Wight's troubled Cowes Floating Bridge 6. After that, a report will go before leading Isle of Wight Council Cabinet members in January, and the local authority will make its next move. Speaking at the Council's Cabinet meeting on Monday, Councillor Phil Jordan, the Infrastructure and Transport Lead, said when the Alliance administration came into office in May, one of the things its members were committed to resolving was the floating bridge. He said that is what we are doing. Councillor Laura P.C. Wilcox, the council leader, said, "It does seem, 22 weeks in, we are desperately pushing forward with this, and there is a bit of light at the end of this very dark and very long tunnel." Cabinet noted the continuation of the legal process, with mediation not yet started, but council officers have been instructed to set a date for it to take place in December. The council is taking legal action against the Marine Architects BCTQ and boat builders Mainstay Marine, who designed and created Floating Bridge. There have been continuous problems since it launched on the River Medina between Cowes and East Cowes, and it has spent many weeks out of action. Cabinet members were also asked to note a request from the Solent Local Enterprise Partnership, that's the SLEP, which has questioned whether the chain ferry is fit for purpose, to commission an independent review into whether the vessel is meeting targets laid out in the business case. The Isle of Wight Council will foot the bill for the investigation, which could be anywhere between £10,000 and £15,000. Councillor Jordan said it is expected to be completed by the end of November. After the 2 items are concluded, a report will come before Cabinet laying out the next steps the authority could take, whether to continue to repair Floating Bridge 6 or get a new one. Replacing the troubled vessel for a new one is an option the Alliance administration is seriously considering, unlike the previous Conservative leadership. Councillor Carl Love, local East Cowes councillor, said he really appreciated the transparent communications from Councillor Jordan. He said, "I'm really confident this will be resolved, and while we cannot divulge all the details due to the legal matters, for the first time in a long time, I feel really positive that something will happen. Currently, Floating Bridge 6 is out of action because of major faults found in the drive motor. No date has been set as to when it will return, but the most recent work saw one of the ramps removed and shipped to Southampton, so contractors can work on it there."
This is Den reading an article from Isle of Wight Radio. One in hospital, one arrested after Ryde stabbing. One person has been airlifted to hospital and another has been arrested and bailed following a stabbing in Ryde. Police were called to an address in Green Street just before midnight on Saturday 23rd of October. A man suffered a stab wound during what police say was an altercation. A 47-year-old Newport man, arrested on suspicion of causing grievous bodily harm with intent, has been bailed with conditions until November the 21st. The Hampshire and Isle of Wight Air Ambulance landed at Simon Street Recreation Ground shortly before 12:30 a.m. on Sunday morning. Upon arrival, a doctor and a paramedic were met by officers and transported to a property. An air ambulance spokesperson said, "We were dispatched to an incident in Ryde following a 999 call at 11:52 p.m. The aircraft, which had 3 persons on board, a pilot, doctor and specialist paramedic, landed at 12:28 a.m. at a nearby site known as Simon Street Recreation Ground, which is suitable for night landing. The crew were then transported to the scene to assist. The patient was then transported at 1:45 a.m. by air ambulance to University Hospital, Southampton. Both men are said to be known to each other. Police say inquiries are continuing to establish the exact circumstances."
Wight Link announces that new Fishbourne ferry will be fully electric. From Island Echo, read by Chris. Wight Link is pledging to further reduce its carbon emissions significantly over the next decade, announcing that they have started the process of commissioning a new ferry that will be 100% electric. The ferry company already operates England's first hybrid energy ship, Victoria of Wight, which entered into service between Fishbourne and Portsmouth in 2018. The vessel's carbon emissions are 20% lower than a diesel-powered ship. Now, Wight Link is drawing up specifications for its next new ferry on the route. Advances in sustainable technology mean it will be possible to commission a new ship that will use electric power from batteries to an even greater extent than at present by Victoria of Wight. Although there are still obstacles to be overcome, Wight Link hopes that shore power can be used to charge batteries, enabling full electric operation to become a reality. It takes 5 years to draw up plans, seek tenders and build a new ferry for the busy Solent crossing, meaning it could be 2026 before a replacement for the ageing St Faith, which is already 31 years old, is in service. Keith Greenfield, Chief Executive, says, "Our aim is to operate England's first all-electric ferry. We are working with our naval architects and technology companies to come up with the best solution to operate ferries with the lowest possible impact on the environment." During COP26, from 31st of October to the 12th of November, Wight Link will feature in a UK government video series about climate leaders. Senior Master Captain Sam Mitchell talks about how climate change is changing the world around us and how sustainable technologies such as hybrid energy can make a difference.
Hello, this is an article read by Sue from Isle of Wight Radio. More than a third of Isle of Wight children living in poverty. Latest figures show more than a third of children on the Isle of Wight are living in poverty. In 2019 to 2020, a total of 7,011, or 32% of island children were below the poverty line. Although it is a slight fall compared to 2018-2019, when there were 7,215 island children in poverty, it remains above the national average of 31%. Data from the End Child Poverty Coalition uses Department of Work and Pensions and HMRC statistics to estimate poverty rates after housing costs. Across the South East, only Portsmouth South, 38%, Portsmouth North, 34%, Southampton Itchen, 35%, and Southampton Test, 35%, have higher rates than the Isle of Wight. Anna Futschwang, chair of the End of Poverty Coalition, said, "The figures speak for themselves. The situation for children couldn't be starker. We all want to live in a society where children are supported to be the best they can be. But the reality is very different for too many. The UK government can be in no doubt about the challenge it faces if it is serious about levelling up parts of the country hardest hit by poverty. After the year we've had, they owe it to our children to come up with a plan to tackle child poverty that includes a boost to children's benefits. And they need to scrap plans to cut universal credit, given parents and children are having a tough enough time as it is. Nationally, London and Birmingham have the greatest concentration of child poverty, with a dozen consistencies showing the majority of children living below the poverty line."
Hello, this is Steve reading a story from the Island Echo headlined Southern Housing Group to work with e-learning provider to help boost residents' employability. Southern Housing Group has teamed up with leading online course provider New Skills Academy to offer accredited online courses to its residents looking to gain new skills and qualifications. Through the new partnership, residents of the G15 Housing Association will be able to access over 700 free lifetime courses covering a variety of subjects. The partnership comes as the government's furlough scheme, which helped pay the wages of around 11.6 million workers through the pandemic, closed at the end of last month. According to research by the Resolution Foundation, around 1 million people were still relying on the scheme when it ended on 30th of September, triggering a period of uncertainty for both businesses and employees. It is expected that many of those who relied on the scheme may be facing increased job insecurity and even redundancy, with many opting to reconsider their career path. Nevertheless, the partnership will benefit not just those looking for a new career path. Residents looking to simply boost their employability, turn their passions into a new side hustle, or even just explore a new hobby will be able to benefit from the new initiative. Most importantly, the group hopes that residents who take part in the courses will reap positive effects to their confidence and well-being. The range of course subjects is extensive and covers a range of subjects from computing and tourism to beauty and animal care. Matthew McLean, Southern Housing Group's Employment and Digital Training Manager, said, "This new partnership is going to provide the perfect platform for our residents to develop skills and confidence in areas that really interest them and hopefully give them an extra edge when applying for new jobs. We are delighted to be working with the New Skills Academy, and we will be listening to our residents and responding to their needs and interests, ensuring the courses on offer reflect the skills and careers they want to pursue." There are over 700 online courses for residents to choose from, with each being fully accredited and certified upon successful completion. Southern Housing Group residents can access the courses by contacting community.investment@shgroup.org.uk.
This is Den reading an article from the Isle of Wight Radio. Isle of Wight filmed comedy The Cockfields will return to our TV screens next month. November. The series first appeared on UK TV channel Gold in 2019. It follows main character Simon, played by Joe Wilkinson, who also co-writes the show. Famous island locations expected to feature in Season 2 include Ventnor, Apley and Sandown. This season sees Simon return to the island alongside his new fiancée Esther, Susanna Fielding, to visit his family. They're hoping for a relaxing short summer break with Simon's ever-doting mum Sue Johnston, stepfather Ray, Gregor Fisher, and stepbrother David, Ben Rufus Green. Series 2 will see Gregor Fisher, Rab C. Nesbitt, step into the role of stepfather Ray. He replaces Bobby Ball, who died last year. Diane Morgan, who played Simon's girlfriend last season, won't be returning for the new series. The Cockfields returns on Monday, November the 8th at 10 p.m.
Police step up patrols to enforce no driving through Ryde pedestrian area. From Isle of Wight Radio, read by Chris. Police have been stepping up patrols to prevent motorists driving through a pedestrianised area of Ryde High Street. This week, officers have been conducting foot patrols in the town centre with a particular focus on the issue of vehicles driving through the top section of the High Street. PC Magachi and PCSO Hull have been making themselves visible in the area, stopping vehicles from driving when there are road signs stating this is not allowed. On Facebook, Isle of Wight Police said, "A number of cars have been stopped and spoken to regarding this matter, and both of the officers have been working closely with Ryde Town Council to enforce either a new road barrier to be put in place or for local traffic wardens to patrol the area on a frequent basis. Ryde Town Council is on board with this issue and are actively putting steps in place to prevent any further vehicles using this area of the High Street. Delivery vehicles are allowed to use this part of the road between the hours of 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. After 10 a.m, there should be no vehicle access for any reason, and these rules are enforced 7 days a week."
An article read by Sue from Island Echo. Local residents supports Commissioner's priorities to make Isle of Wight safer. Almost 5,000 local residents and partners have given their views on the Police and Crime Commissioner's draft Police and Crime Plan, More Police, Safer Streets, and show significant support for all 9 priorities the Commissioner set out to make Hampshire and Isle of Wight 2 of the safest counties to live, work and visit. In the draft Police and Crime Plan, Police and Crime Commissioner Donna Jones commits to recruiting an extra 600 officers, to improving police visibility and to working harder to combat antisocial behaviour. It also includes measures on rural crime, on unauthorised encampments and on making better use of technology. The key priorities identified in the plan are 600 more police officers by 2023, improve police visibility, bringing policing to your community, tackle antisocial behaviour, zero tolerance approach to knife crime, prevent youth offending, more customer-focused police calling handling, crackdown on unauthorised encampments, improve outcomes for victims including female victims of violence, a voice for rural communities. All 9 priorities gained significant support for those who responded to the consultation, with the top 5 being 600 more police officers, improving police visibility, tackling ASB, preventing youth offending and improving outcome for victims. Donna Jones, Police and Crime Commissioner, said, "I would like to take this opportunity to thank local residents and partners for giving me their views on policing priorities throughout my consultation. I received some really interesting feedback and it will generally help to shape my final plan. It is essential that the priorities in my More Police, Safer Streets plan are tackling the issues that are of most concern to all our communities, as well as those offences that cause the most harm. The results of my consultation and the significant support for all 9 priorities clearly show these are the right ones for people living across Hampshire and the Isle of Wight. The More Police, Safer Streets plan sets the direction for policing across the 2 counties, and the Commissioner will now review the feedback from the consultation before presenting the plan to the Police and Crime Panel on the 12th of November 2021.
Hello, this is Steve reading a story from the On the Wight news site, headlined, Final Horror Novel by Former Islander Published Following His Death. The former Newport High School pupil, who grew up in Cowes, was putting the finishing touches to his latest novel when he sadly passed away. A novel charting a magical and pagan odyssey, written by a former Newport High School student, is due to be published posthumously next month following the sad death of Ron Whale. Ron was a Portsmouth-based writer of horror fiction who grew up in Cowes and attended Newport High School. His stories, in the English ghost story tradition of M.R. James and Arthur Machen, have been published with those of other authors in popular anthologies such as the Best New Horror Books, as well as collections solely of his own work. Ron's stories have been published internationally, including in the USA, Canada, Ireland, France, Germany, and Romania. Sadly, Ron passed away in December 2020 at the age of 70, following a major stroke a few weeks earlier. Before he was taken ill, Ron had been putting the finishing touches to a new novel titled King's Satyr. His wife Fran says, Ron always loved the traditional ghost story, and in King's Satyr, as in all his writing, he aims at the same atmosphere and sense of the strange and uncanny. Fran, with the help of short story author Mark Valentine and publisher Robert Morgan, has worked tirelessly to bring the novel to publication, presented initially in a beautiful hand-numbered limited edition jacketed hardcover for Ron's many admirers. King's Satyr charts Cyrus Burton's occult, magical and pagan odyssey, some years after a childhood encounter with a mythical creature in the woods, as he seeks the truth behind his mysterious experience.
Coppins Bridge traffic light replacement work stalled again from On the Wight, read by Jasmine. The work has been shifted again, but the cabinet member responsible said it will be completed before the start of the next visitor season. Work to replace traffic lights around Coppins Bridge has been pushed back to next year, after complaints over a lack of consultation and fears it would disrupt the Christmas retail period in Newport. The scheme was set to start on Monday the 25th of October under the Highways PFI contract, but has been deferred amid concerns raised by the local councillor Jeff Brodie, who called the work massively disruptive. Speaking at the Isle of Wight Council's cabinet meeting, Brodie asked why he and only 2 other Newport councillors had been told about the plans just 4 days before the work was due to start. Brodie said the 3 councillors that had been invited to attend the briefing with Island Roads on such short notice that only he was able to attend. He said he was bombarded with information and had no opportunity to discuss the scheme with colleagues. During previous improvement schemes around Newport, including at St Mary's Junction and St George's Way, he said councillors were given plenty of notice and had the opportunity to request changes to diversions and traffic management schemes. The lack of consultation, Brodie said, was not what he expected from a council that was transparent and accountable. The replacements were supposed to take place between April 2018 and March 2019 as part of the 7-year PFI core investment period, but were delayed so as not to add more disruption at the same time as larger schemes. Phil Jordan, Cabinet Member for Transport, said the timing was considered the most appropriate as it was outside of peak visitor times and no work was scheduled for 2 weeks either side of Christmas. Work would have taken place overnight with diversions, with lane and road closures in Fairley Road and Staplers Road, area not planned until mid-November. Jordan said this would have given the time for consultation period with the councillors to take place. Having considered the feedback, however, Jordan said the work programme was being revised to allow further communication with all councillors, and work will now commence later, but will be completed before the start of the visitor season. Julie Jones-Evans for Newport Central, and one of the councillors who was unable to attend the Island Roads briefing, said it was important that the community is consulted, but was pleased to hear the scheme had been pushed back. She said Christmas was starting early, and this year, with the festive light switch on the 20th November, with the Community Council has spent thousands on, and Small Business Saturday. Jones-Evans reminded those in charge of the highway schemes that the Community Council and other groups were there to work alongside the Isle of Wight Council, ensuring the schemes run smoothly.
Historic Solent Fort sold for £715,000. 2 more up for sale. From Isle of Wight Radio, read by Chris. One of the 3 Solent forts situated off the coast of the Isle of Wight has been sold for £715,000. Horse Sand Fort has been bought by a UK-based private purchaser who plans to develop the site for leisure use. The fort is the smallest of the 3 sea defences and is currently undeveloped. No Man's Fort and Spitbank Fort are also listed for sale. All 3 forts are owned by entrepreneur Mike Clare, who decided to sell them in 2019. Estate agents Colliers has set a deadline for bids for No Man's Fort. The 99,000 square foot island is currently developed as a 23-bedroom luxury island retreat, which was refurbished in 2015 with spa, restaurants, helipad and event space. More recently, additional landing stages and new generators have been installed, as well as the fort's own pub. Previously, it was marketed for £4.25 million, but now the asking price has been dropped to £3.6 million, and a deadline of November the 26th has been set for bids. Paul Beresford from Collier's Hotel Agency said, "Following our recent sale of Horse Sand Fort, Mr. Clare is keen to progress on No Man's Fort and has reduced the asking price to £3.6 million and set a deadline for offers to come forward. There are not many people who can say that they own a fort. This site could be an amazing addition to a property portfolio, whether it is used as a hotel as it is now, a holiday residence, or converted into a different use. For a creative investor, it could be many uses, as a data centre, specialist athletic training venue, a filming location, or even a headquarters for a fast-growing startup. Its remote location offers the ultimate privacy and security. The third Spitbank Fort is also available for purchase under separate negotiation."
Hello everyone, this is Mike.
And Sonara.
And before we start the second part of the County Press, here is this week's Society's news. Yarn at Millbrook is on Monday at 10 a.m. This is open to everyone, members, volunteers and friends who just like to do anything with yarn. The cost is £1 and runs until 11:30 a.m. The new swimming group at Medina restarts on Monday after their break on the 1st of November at 1:30 p.m. The group have exclusive use of the pool and are looking for new members, so if you are interested in joining, please call the office for more details. The cost is £5 for swimming. Transport is available if requested. Coffee and chat is on every Wednesday at Millbrook House from 10 a.m. until 11:30, and it is only £1 to include the cake and coffee. Come along and spend time with members and staff discussing various topics, etc.
The Thursday Mix and Mingle is held every week, starting at 10:30 and finishing at 2 p.m. If you would like to come along, please call the office to book a space. Transport can be arranged if required. Our book group is held at Middlebrook House once a month. Members can either choose to receive a USB stick or CD from the RNIB, the new chosen title, and then discuss when they meet together. The group is looking for new members to join, so if you love reading, please call the office and they can send out your preferred method. It's free to join. Our next meeting is on November 10th, starting at 2 p.m. It's still not too late to enter the competition, so if you are at a loose end and would like to write a story on this year's theme, Vision, V-I-S-I-O-N, please call the office or download an entry form for the rules to be in with a chance of winning some fantastic prizes.
Now we move on to the letters. Glad to see the back of I Saw Chimney. This is from Charlie Gange at Cowes. I was pleased to read the reports in the county press of the forthcoming demolition of the Fawley Power Station chimney this weekend. This tower has blighted the view off the north coast of the island for around 2 generations, and I was reliably informed all those years ago it stopped the ex-Prime Minister and yachtsman, the late Edward Heath, from purchasing a property in Cowes. It is disappointing that it is timed so early in the day when, if held later, it could be a spectacle for the public to gather and enjoy, and I can only hope that the new Holmwood Hotel will kindly fix the view of their webcam to the scene for the period of the event. And when done, can't Demolition Man please return his attention to the other blight that sits off the parade at Cowes, namely the new breakwater or deflector, as it's so called, whose benefit remains minuscule compared to the damage done to the vista and impact on the navigation of the harbour and river.
Loving the CP Spoof of the Week feature, and this is sent in by C. Cass of Newport. Regarding your spoof of the week, recently you gave us Newport becoming a city. Let's be honest, I'm a Newport resident myself. It's certainly not the best town on the island and probably wouldn't even make the top 4. Then you print something about the light blue lobster, a 1 in 2 million find. Well, according to my local fishmonger, that's no surprise. They range from light blue to blue-black as normal. But if you get an albino one, then yes, that's something to shout about. So what's the next spoof going to be about? The floating bridge is operating?
And now 2 Scousers seeing the Isle of Wight limitations. This is Doreen McInerney of Newport. My husband Eddie and I moved here a couple of years ago from our modest terraced house in Tuebrook, Liverpool, and we moved to the island's metropolis town and wannabe city, Newport. Despite its cute name, it was a bit of a pigsty really. Feral urchins on the streets, closed shops and pubs, and the nightlife isn't up to much. Tuebrook was hardly any different, to be honest, but I think we're glad we moved. We like being townies. One problem, though, is not very well connected, is it? The Isle of Wight. Now that we've been jabbed thrice, we want to get out and about and go travelling. The trouble is, getting abroad from here is trickier than we thought it would be. We've just been for a mini-city break to Germany. What a palaver! We flew from London City Airport, the only one with convenient timed flights, to get there in time for our 1:30 p.m. flight. We got a bus to ride at 6:50 a.m, a boat to Portsmouth at 7:45 a.m, a train to London at 8:15 a.m, and a tube to City Airport at 10:10 a.m. Coming back took 12 hours door to door. That's dreadful. So we have to factor in an overnight stay at the airports. The only alternative is to make radical decisions about a fixed link, or if I could add my own suggestion, and bold it is too, the estuarine portion of the Medina is barely used for trade, only marginally built on, and at low tide it stinks. Time to bury it. I propose we build an international airport on top of it, with its terminal next to the steakhouse in Seaclose Park, Newport, Isle of Wight International Airport. Has a ring to it, don't you think?
We didn't know what we didn't know in pandemic. Sent in by Timothy Sellers of Apps Heath. I'm getting very tired of national media criticising the government over their handling of the COVID pandemic. I cannot see the point in public inquiries, and nor do I understand the people suing for compensation over the mishandling by the government, other than greed. After all, the money will never bring back the loved ones lost to the virus, so what is the point? I have recently read The Secret History of the Blitz by Joshua Levine. In Chapter 3, he makes a comment which I feel is very pertinent to the COVID pandemic. When assessing the performance of the government and asking whether it did a good job for its people, we must first remind ourselves that the Blitz amounted to an unknown and unknowable prospect. Just as the government was having to guess at the size of the deaths and the number of psychological casualties. Perhaps people should take this on board before criticising any public body or agency. Just replace the word blitz with COVID pandemic. I honestly feel that the government, regardless of which party is in power, handled the issue to the best of their ability, using the information available at any point in time. We all make mistakes, but we all believe we make the right decision all the time, until the unknown or unforeseen rears its ugly head. So perhaps we should accept what has happened and learn from it for future reference, and hope we never have to go through such a horrendous experience again.
And this is the question that Janice Boswell of Ryde asks. Will Post Office make it unhappy Christmas? What has happened to the island's postal service? On October the 9th, we received our first delivery of post since September the 29th. This was made up of 2 small parcels from Amazon and 10 letters. Of the letters, 3 were birthday cards, 2 posted on the island, 1 first class, no postmark, and the other second class on September the 29th. As my birthday was on October the 2nd, I was very disappointed to receive them a week late. Another letter was posted second class from Cheltenham on September the 30th. My friend, who lives in Southport, received an identical letter the following day. I have emailed the post office to complain, but their automated reply says they aim to respond within 10 working days. No doubt they, with give COVID Brexit shortage of fuel and HGV drivers as a reason for the delay, much like everyone else these days. Goodness knows what the postal delivery service will be like in December with the extra Christmas post.
This Goliath, not much of a giant, from Sarah Phillipsbourne in Bembridge. A rather curious front page headline, David 1, Goliath 0, in the county press, 22nd of October, regarding the UKOG saga, as who is Goliath? While UK Oil and Gas sounds an impressive heavyweight name, UKOG is hardly BP, but moreover a small oil exploration company seeking to maximise its share profits in any which way it can. It's the fossil fuel last chance saloon. One of the latest projects in Turkey had to be halted due to seismic activity, and the minimum of research into UKOG digs up some less than wholesome coverage and antics of the company. While the majority of us are highly relieved that the planning committee voted unanimously to refuse the application for drilling, there are some interesting pickings in the post-mortem of how the island ended up in such a situation. The International Energy Agency has made it very clear there is no place for new fossil fuel projects if we are going to pass on a livable planet to our children. It has also calculated renewables are better for our health, our jobs, and our wallets. Where does the Isle of Wight Planning Department fit into the Goliath matrix, as they, after all, recommended the project for approval, having apparently received specialist training on oil well applications? It is particularly baffling no objections to the oil and gas development were made by statutory consultees on the environment, drinking water, landscape, and health and safety grounds. Were they all complicit with Goliath in their inaction? How bizarre that no points were highlighted by the Environment Agency, given reason and arguments, and respected international reports exist stating drilling for oil and gas can impact the water cycle and drinking water in variety of ways, from depletion in collection, injection of highly toxic chemicals, spills to disposal. The island appears vulnerable to such potential damaging projects without tougher environmental scrutiny. There seems to be an inadequate Isle of Wight policy framework regarding our environment, especially as it is clear the Environment Agency, which is supposed to protect our environment, appears to be sleeping on the job. We need a much more robust Isle of Wight focused way with tough environment policies to be able to deal with Goliath, whatever he or she they might be. Editor's footnote. The headline referred to the quote from "Don't drill the Wight objectors" comment after their victory.
Absence of opposition noted. This is from Alan Deeming of East Cowes. The Lord's amendment to beef up the Environment Bill and force more action to tackle storm overflows was defeated in the House of Commons on Wednesday last week. But that's not the end of the story. Thanks to the many people who wrote to their own MP, 22 Tory MPs defied their party whip and joined the opposition by voting in favour of the Lord's amendment. This will be key to keeping the pressure on the government to act, especially if we can increase this number next time around. You can see which MPs voted no to the government's attempt to block the change here. Bob Seeley's name is conspicuous by its absence, due to him having voted in favour of the government's proposal to reject the Lord's amendment, so he is presumably in favour of the continued discharge of raw sewage into our rivers and seas. The Environment Bill has now gone back to the Lords for further debate.
Ferry Nightmare, sent by C.W. Heathfield from Wootton. May I share my experience of Wightlink ferries? My wife had to attend Queen Alexandra Hospital on October 19th for treatment. We could not get a booking on the day before, so we decided to book a ferry either a Saturday or Sunday. We booked up on the Saturday, and we got a text from Wight to say they had a problem with the loading ramp, so we could only disembark at Portsmouth International. My wife left hospital at 3 p.m, but we couldn't get a ferry until 7 p.m, as that was the time we'd booked on. At 5:17 p.m, we had another text from Wight to say they had another problem with the ramp, and our ferry had been cancelled until 9 p.m. Our ferry didn't arrive until 9:37 p.m. We left at 9:47 that evening, and we didn't arrive home until 10:50 p.m. This was a nightmare, never to be forgotten.
Amazing cafe. Rosemary Best, a 79-year-old teenager of Shanklin. When I popped into Node Hill in Newport, and to what I thought was another coffee shop for a snack and a drink, I saw something amazing. Families sitting round tables playing board games together. I was at Snacks and Ladders. What a good idea. There are over 500 board games to play, and the snacks are amazing too. It was so refreshing to find somewhere a bit different.
Behave like a lord, from Alexander Hopkinson Woolley of Bembridge. B. Wilshire, from County Press Letters, 22nd of October, seems not to have noticed it was Angela Rayner who described Tory politicians as scum, not the Prime Minister. However, he raises a very important point. People are characterised by what they say and do, and there is an enormous amount of room for improvement on that front in the House of Commons. The ill-mannered members concerned should learn how to behave from the House of Lords. And another one from Albert Shepherd of Cowes. Pull up a chair when calling Doc. May I offer a few words of advice for anyone who is thinking of phoning Cowes Health Centre? Before you make the call, I suggest you pull up a comfy chair, prepare a sandwich and a cup of tea, and get yourself a good book. This is because, in my case, it took 20 minutes for my call to be answered, by which time I had eaten my sandwich, drunk my tea, and read 2 chapters of my book. Can someone tell me why it took so long to answer my call?
Well, that's the letters for this week. So let's move on to something a bit strange. Some of the island's spookiest places. By day, the island is a place of spectacular countryside, beaches and great sports and leisure activities. But it has a darker side too. This small island is home to hundreds of ghosts and spooky happenings. Halloween is perhaps the perfect time to remind islanders of some of the everyday places they can visit, which have spooky histories and blood-curdling legends attached to them. The island has everything from phantom monks, grey ladies and poltergeists to smugglers, soldiers, royalty and Romans. With the island's rich historical heritage and violent and colourful past, it's not surprising that ghostly goings-on and haunting echoes of those turbulent times continue to reverberate through 21st century. Just why the island should have so many ghosts is a mystery. It may be due to powerful unseen energy or ley lines which run under the island. Journalist and paranormal author Gay Baldwin has been investigating and researching ghost stories for more than 40 years. Her series of Isle of Wight ghost books, DVDs, audio books and ghost hunter guides top the island's bestseller list. Here are just a few of Gay's favourite spooky haunts to try. But please heed this warning. If visiting churches or graveyards, please behave appropriately. And if ghost hunting for K-Nighton Gorges, remember the land itself is privately owned, although the site can be seen from the road and public footpath. Appledurkham House, Wroxall. This handsome haunted mansion with its 365 windows and 52 rooms is now just a shell of its former self. The ghosts, however, remain. They include a phantom carriage, brown-clad monks, dark shapes glimpsed flitting through the grounds, a baby's cry is heard, and unseen hands regularly leaf through the pages of the visitor's book.
Isle of Wight Zoo, aka Wild Heart Animal Sanctuary, on Culver Parade, Sandown. A young soldier who was cut in half in a tragic accident at the old Sandown Fort has been seen in recent years by zoo staff and keepers. Since his agonising death in 1888, the unfortunate soldier's ghost has been sighted at the old gun emplacement in the fort and near the moat. The young man was working on one of the fort's 18-ton guns when it rolled backwards, cutting him in two. Eerily, in an earlier tragedy at Sandown Barracks, a master gunner went insane, shot his wife and child, and cut his own throat. K-Nighton Gorges in Newchurch. It's recognised as the island's most haunted place. Every New Year's Eve, people gather to wait for the ghostly house to reappear. A pair of weathered stone gateposts are all that remain of the manor house of K-Nighton Gorges, yet it lives on, its blood-red history a testament to murder, suicide, insanity, malice, and a gallery of ghosts. A coach and horses, poltergeist lights, phantom revels, and tales of stone creatures seen upon the gate pillars are just a few of the spooky happenings in this strange place. At Carisbrooke Castle, Carisbrooke. For more than 9 centuries, it has stood firm against attack, but within its walls, ghosts roam. In the famous well house where donkeys work the wooden treadwheel, the face of a dead girl who drowned in the 160-foot deep well has been seen. A mysterious cloaked figure with 4 dainty lapdogs walks the castle grounds. Other phantoms include a Victorian lady in grey and tragic Princess Elizabeth, daughter of King Charles I, who died a prisoner here in 1650, aged 14.
Hare and Hounds, Araton. Murderous woodcutter Micah Morey, who killed his young grandson in cold blood in 1737, was tried and hanged, and his corpse left rotting on the gibbet at Gallows Hill near the Hare and Hounds until it became an offence to eye and nostril. The gibbet crossbeam, complete with a notch cut in it besides the date of his execution, can be seen in the pub. Morey's restless spirit can also be seen roaming Gallows Hill, carrying a large axe. Ventnor Botanic Gardens, Undercliff Drive. For almost a century, the world-renowned chest hospital, the Royal National Hospital, specialised in treating killer disease, tuberculosis. When the half-mile-long building was demolished in 1969, the site was transformed into a gardens. The hospital was haunted long before this, and even today, long-dead patients are still seen and heard. Ghostly weeping, groaning and smells of ether are reported. A sickly, consumptive-looking ghost and phantom nurses in old-fashioned uniforms walk the gardens.
As well as writing ghost books, 21 years ago, Gay teamed up with Mark Tuckey to devise the popular Newport Ghost Walk around the old town. These popular walks with a supernatural slant have flourished and have introduced thousands of islanders and visitors to the darker side of the Wight. Although better known for sailing, Cowes has more than its share of haunted places. Why not try the old Cowes Ghost Trail, a free, self-guided tour around the streets and alleyways of the town? Starting from the parade, the circular walk features more than a dozen spooky haunts, including several inns and pubs where spirits of all kinds can be found. You can download it free at www.ghostisland.com where you can also pick up tips on ghost hunting and learn about more of the island's haunted places to visit. You can also submit your own ghostly experiences and photos and check for regular updates and news stories.
In Rebecca Rankarani's view, money really is proving to be the root of all evil. I am currently reading Bob Mortimer's autobiography, And Away. After training and working as a solicitor, he worked for a service to help people get benefits they were entitled to, helped fight evictions, sued councils for placing people in cockroach-infested blocks of flats. One line he wrote on leaving this job was on the utter frustration at doing a job that could simply be solved by more money. It seems like a recurrent theme, a cliché, a hackneyed old trope, which is responded to by tropes that have been around since people starting attaching value to things. We have too many inequalities. There must be a way of stopping people suffering if it is within our means to. We don't have a bottomless pit, a magic money tree. There will always be poor people, always have, always will. Anyway, we will have the biggest bomb and a faster train and blue passports. And I wonder, how far removed do we need to be from a problem to allow us to say, nothing I can do here? I recently started a small campaign to get the chicane moved from Carisbrook Ford when I couldn't get through them in a mobility scooter. The response has been amazing, with our local parish council rep, Joe Lever, being contacted by some community-minded locals while I was having knee replacement in Lithuania. Joe messaged me. He has already brought this up with council staff. We await their response with bated breath. The point is that it would never have occurred to me that these chicanes were an accessibility problem for those with disabilities or even double buggies if I hadn't experienced it. I genuinely believe that those responsible for planning roads, pavements, public pathways, buildings, aisle widths, crossings, public transport, entertainment venues, housing, all need to see it through the eyes of those with mobility, visual, hidden and sensory issues. Dropped curbs, wide doorways, flat pavements. Supermarket aisles that don't put stuff, be it specials or restocking, down the middle of the aisles, making it impossible to manoeuvre. I'm lucky. My issues are mechanical and can be sorted. Many people must deal with these accessibility issues day in and day out. And the frustrating thing is these issues could be sorted out with the correct allocation of resources and the right priorities. None of us on our own can change the world, but together we can make differences to our communities. We can make our voices heard. It is the squeaky wheel that gets oiling. As a footnote, the only thing I want to see floating in our sea is the floating bridge. If the private companies that own Southern Water can pay out £57 billion in dividends to its shareholders, then have the barefaced cheek to bleat that they need public money to upgrade their infrastructure, they are extracting the effluent, then pumping it into our environment, laughing all the way to the bank. Mr. Seeley should hang his head in shame for voting to allow this company's licence to contaminate our environment further. Seldom seen, Sewage Seeley has a certain ring to it. As the saying goes, cream rises to the top, but so does scum.
Bob Seeley's regular short column. Here's the real reason I voted the way I did. I have taken stick over the past week. Fair enough, that's politics. My opponents accuse me of voting to allow water companies to pump sewage onto our beaches. It sounds appalling, but it's a travesty. The debate in Parliament is about how quickly we can clean up beaches and rivers, not whether it gets done. I am proud of what we're doing in government and on the island. This summer, I got Southern Water to talk with councillors to explain their plans. They pledged millions in investment on the Isle of Wight. Last week's drama was part of the Environment Bill, a new groundbreaking law to help clean up our natural environment. It will include binding targets on biodiversity, air quality, water and resource and waste efficiency, as well as plans to help native species such as the red squirrel. The Environment Bill already has strong provisions on sewage discharge. Water companies such as Southern Water will have to show how they will develop their drains and sewerage over 25 years, including stopping storm overflows. However, a member of the House of Lords, a Duke, wanted an amendment which would have passed unlimited costs for sewage clean-up onto consumers, including everyone on the island who pays for water. While I've had angry letters from constituents on sewage, I would have had hundreds, if not thousands, of desperate letters from islanders fearful of being unable to pay water bills if the amendment became law. Opposition politicians don't have to live with the consequences of their actions, even when they are dukes. Can we do more? Yes, truth be told, I'm not entirely happy with where the government is, but the Duke of Wellington's amendment would have made things worse. We are trying to fix a situation where sewage has been allowed to flow into the rivers and seas for years. Last week's vote was not the final word. Negotiations are going on. Government needs to make concessions. If it does, I will support it. If it does not, I won't. I know that folks are concerned, and they include friends of mine who aren't best pleased. However, the Environment Bill is a groundbreaking law to help clean up our rivers and beaches. The debate in Parliament is about how quickly we clean up beaches and rivers, not whether it gets done. That's the truth of the matter. I'll leave it to the good sense of islanders to make up their minds.
And here is music and events to enjoy this week. And here's your handy guide of where to find live music, entertainment and other events on the island this week. On Sunday, the music is the Sunday recital, Thea Callahan, which is ticketed at the Key Arts Centre, Newport, at 11 a.m. On Monday, music is acoustic originals and open mic featuring Johnny Michael, the Clacks Band, Cryomancy and BOCA at Key Arts, Newport at 7:30 p.m. Tuesday, music, The Greatest Love of All, a tribute to Whitney Houston, again ticketed, at Shanklin Theatre at 7:30 p.m. Wednesday, there's music, Platform 1 presents, again a ticketed session, Strings Bar and Venue, Newport at 7 p.m. Gig Spanner, also ticketed, at Key Arts, Newport at 7:30 p.m.
And Dickensian lecture to set festive tone. The Arts Society Isle of Wight will be presenting its second lecture of the season, A Dickens of a Christmas and God Bless You Everyone, at Northwood House, Cowes on Tuesday. The festive-themed talk by Bertie Pierce focuses on celebrated author Charles Dickens, who is seen as the man who invented Christmas. Dickens set the tone for the traditional Christmas, with plum pudding, turkey, games and dancing in a family setting. His ever-popular tale, A Christmas Carol, published in December 1843, immortalises the spirit and magic of Christmas cheer. In this lecture, Bertie presents the Dickensian Christmas with readings, biographical details and conjuring tricks. Having survived a COVID year by keeping in touch with members via Zoom broadcast lectures during the 2020 season, the Society is now delighted to be back to providing real-life meetings at their new Cowes venue. Every month, the Society hosts top-rated experts in their fields to give illustrated lectures on a wide variety of subjects connected to fine art, which includes painting, sculpture, music and history. The Society is eager to welcome back both existing and new members, and non-members can come along to sample a lecture for just £10. Capacity is limited, so advance booking is essential. To join or book a lecture seat, email info@theartsocietyisleofwight.org.uk. That's a very long email address. info@theartsocietyisleofwight.org.uk. The lecture starts at 2 p.m.
And now we have some additional news items for you. A major project to look at shortage of dentists. An assessment of dental needs is being carried out to tackle the biggest health inequality the Isle of Wight faces. Following the report from Healthwatch, which found almost half of islanders are struggling to get dental treatment, NHS South East has commissioned an oral needs assessment across Hampshire and the island. It started last month and will look at the existing dental services on the island and deprivation data and travel links. The assessment is expected to be completed early next year and hopes to build services into the gaps found in the 6 months following the outcome of the assessment. Alison Cross, NHS England's Senior Dental Commissioning Manager for the South East, told the Isle of Wight Council the commissioning of new services would ensure they are the right ones being put into the right places for the right people. The problem they face, however, Ms. Cross said, is the recruitment and retention of dentists. She said, as a commissioning team, we cannot help with recruitment, but the national team has been made aware of it, and there will be a national drive to get dentists to come to the smaller areas. Whatever we do, if we commission services then we need to ensure dentists can work under them. The money is there, but it is not being utilised as the dentists cannot deliver it. Joanna Smith, Healthwatch Isle of Wight manager, said it was one of the biggest issues islanders are concerned about.
Seal of approval for Newport mural. A well-known London street artist has painted a harbour seal outside Newport's Lord Louis Library. ATM, whose work usually features wildlife, came to the island at the invitation of Secrets of the Solent, a National Lottery Heritage Fund project supported by Hampshire and Isle of Wight Wildlife Trust. Particularly in the Solent, harbour seals are often spotted around the island on sandbanks and beaches. Like grey seals, harbour seals feed on fish, squid, whelk, crab and mussels. Councillor Julie Jones-Evans said, "The Wildlife Trust has done a great job attracting the funds and organising this project to brighten up our historic county town. Even in the heart of Newport, we're only a few steps away from the wild species that live here too, and this beautiful new mural will remind us of that." With the support of Shaping Newport, we were able to secure the site for ATM to create this work, and we're hoping to deliver more art like this soon. Artist ATM said, "We as human beings are very much part of the whole web of nature, dependent on a healthy environment like every other living creature. It's so easy to forget this in our modern industrialized world, where we are insulated by comfort and technology. We must learn a greater love and respect for other living things if we are to avert a global disaster." The subject of the mural was chosen by a vote held within the local community.
New blood for Ireland welcomed by CLA Chair. Colin Boswell has been named the new chair of the Isle of Wight branch of the Country Land and Business Association, that's the CLA. Colin replaced Lawrence Taylor at the CLA committee on last week, stepping into one of the most important rural roles in the island. Father of 5, Colin and his family run the garlic farm near Newchurch, a business that includes self-catering accommodation, as well as a farm shop, restaurant and cafe, attracting more than 200,000 visitors a year. He moved to the island in the 1950s when he was just a child, where his father pioneered the growing of sweet corn in the UK. Colin says, "There is a new influx of fresh faces to the island who can help its rural economy evolve and grow, a group he calls the New Victorians." Colin frequently rides his bike around the island and says he has observed their impact. He said, "New residents are increasingly present in the rural scene, and it is important we embrace them. I consider myself fortunate to meet many new islanders. They are relatively informed, considerably younger than our average age gathered here, and with the energy and tenacity to make an island life a rich and rewarding one. Our new Victorians arrive with money to invest in improving their new location, hopefully to the benefit of all. I see the island's CLA as a natural home for many of them. We should be welcoming them and offering ourselves as a go-to source of knowledge and contacts within the community." As the CLA Isle of Wight branch chair, Colin will be representing farmers, landowners and rural businesses.
Spectacular return of cantata choir in concert. A bumper audience was treated to a concert of French music as the Isle of Wight cantata choir made a triumphant return to performance at All Saints Church Ryde on Saturday. Not only did the choir shine under the baton of musical director Rachel Tweddle, with the trio of pieces composed by Gabriel Faure, the audience was also treated to performances by talented young islanders featuring a spectacular piano recital by the winner of 2020 BBC Young Musician of the Year keyboard category, Thomas Luke. The well-known and much-loved Requiem was the highlight of the evening. The Requiem was received with great acclaim, with young Poppy Gallowwood taking the angelic soprano solo for the Sanctus and Erin returning for the baritone solos in the offertory and the plaintive Libera Me. The concert was dedicated to members of the choir who had died during the 2 years it had been unable to perform. It was certainly a fitting tribute. The next concert by the Cantata Choir will be in April.
Fawley's chimney set to fall. A huge landmark across the Solent, Fawley Power Station's 650-foot high chimney will be demolished this weekend. The massive structure, which has dominated the entrance to Southampton Water for half a century, will be blown up on Sunday at 7 a.m. Roads and paths will be closed near the site, and an exclusion zone will be enforced from 5:30 a.m. Some nearby residents have been asked to leave their homes. A building next to the chimney was demolished in 2019 and 2020. Those running Sunday's demolition are keen to dissuade crowds of onlookers. Around 1,500 homes will be built on the site. There will be a live stream of the demolition at fawleywaterside.co.uk. Visit thecountypress.co.uk for a link.
Liberian tanker ran aground on Needles Bank. A tanker that ran aground off the Needles on Monday has refloated and was this week moored off Thorness Bay. The Liberian-flagged vessel named Chem Ayla was built in 2009 and measured 144.8 metres with a width of 23 metres and a capacity of 17,055 deadweight tonnes. The Chem Ayla docked at Fawley on Friday, October 22nd, and was headed to Alexandria in Egypt after leaving Southampton Water. The 12-year-old vessel ran aground off the Needles, with no damage reported, and remained grounded until refloating overnight during high tide. Fortunately, there was no pollution, no ingress of water, the hull was undamaged, and the boat retained propulsion and power. From there, the Chem Ayla anchored off Thorness Bay, 3.26 nautical miles from Cowes, on the island's northwest coast, where it has moored since Tuesday. Members of the Needles Coastwatch team monitored the grounding and safety operation. In a statement, they said, "Our watchkeepers were witness to an ongoing incident just near the water tower when the 144-metre Liberian-flagged MT Chem Ayla oil chemical tanker ran aground at around 4:20 p.m. on the treacherous Needles shingle bank. Yarmouth RNLI was also on the scene before being stood down, and the Coast Guard helicopter was spotted over the island.
Clean sweep by Island Roads team. Island Roads has begun an intensive period of street cleansing aimed at removing autumn leaves from the highway. Over the next few weeks, additional mechanical sweepers and extra shifts will see tons of leaves removed from the network ahead of winter. Areas with known high leaf fall will be targeted in particular. Dave Wallace, Island Roads Operations and Maintenance Manager, said, "Not only can leaves become slippery to cars and pedestrians if left uncollected, heavy leaf fall can also obscure road markings and compromise the highway drainage system. Upon collection, the leaves are taken to Island Roads Depot at Stag Lane. The leaf pile is then drained and released water captured and filtered before being discharged back into the sewer system. Materials such as sand and grit can be reused as building materials, while the leaf pile is then used for compost and soil."
New scheme to get people on e-bikes. Beryl has launched a scheme to provide electric bikes, e-bikes, for island residents who regularly travel between Newport and Cowes. The operator, which already runs e-scooter hire on the island, is making e-bikes available in Newport and Cowes over the next 6 months. Participants will be able to use the Beryl bikes for free for 1 month and will be incentivised through mile payments of 60p per mile up to £50 a month. The two towns are connected by the Red Squirrel Trail. The trail is just over 5 kilometres in length and offers an attractive traffic-free cycling experience. Delivered in partnership with the Isle of Wight Council and the Department of Transport, the scheme has several key objectives, including providing those who may not currently have access to an e-bike with an opportunity to try one. Beryl CEO Philip Ellis said, "We're delighted to be running this scheme. Scooters on the island have already been used by over 12,500 individual users, and the benefits that e-bikes can provide should be enjoyed by as many people as possible. With price often being a barrier to ownership, schemes such as this will play a key role in widening and expanding access. We can't wait to see people riding in Newport and Cowes and look forward to hearing people's experiences of using our e-bikes." And that is all we have for today. So it's goodbye from Sonara.
And it's bye-bye from Mike. Bye-bye, everyone. Bye-bye.
And this week, Channel 4's audio description problems combining sustainability and inclusion. It's the In Touch series. In the first interview since the problem occurred, Channel 4's Chief Marketing Officer and Executive Lead for Inclusion and Diversity, Zaid Al-Qasab, explains what has happened to their audio description and signing services. Neither has been working since the end of September. We ask why there were no backup services, what measures will be put in place to avoid it happening again, and most importantly, when these services will be back up and running. We all know that global action is needed to prevent worsening climate change and its severe consequences. The UN Climate Change Conference, or COP26, is just around the corner, and it is seen as the last chance for us to make a positive impact on our future. We discuss the relationship between sustainability and inclusion and highlight some of the problems visually impaired people are facing with so-called sustainable infrastructure. We assess the consequences of leaving people with disabilities out of future sustainability plans. We hear from Anne Fry, an international specialist on the transport needs of disabled and older people, and Ian McKinnon of the Global Disability Innovation Hub, who is also part of a panel at COP26 discussing these themes. Presenter is Peter White, producer Beth Hemmings.
BBC Sounds, music, radio, podcasts.
Good evening. Tonight, with the UN Climate Change Conference, COP26, just around the corner, we all know there's a price to be paid for a sustainable future. and an even bigger price to pay if nothing is done about it. But is there a danger that disabled people may be paying a higher price than most?
So when you get off the bus, if the cyclists are coming and they're not stopping, I just don't feel safe. Until I get back into my flat, I just feel stressed out. There's no way to live your life.
We'll be discussing whether sustainability and inclusion can coexist. But first, I know this is Radio 4, but I also like to keep an ear on what's going on the telly. Channel 4 often has some good stuff. Let's see, have a look at my Braille Radio Times. Got Gogglebox, that's always good for a laugh. Bake Off, but maybe not at the moment, since they've had a considerable problem with audio description. This is following a fire at the site where their audio description and subtitling is produced. Ofcom have been critical about the lack of communication with their viewers. So, what is going on and how long will visually impaired people have to wait for the return of audio described programmes on Channel 4? Well, I've been talking to Zaid Al-Kassab. He is Channel 4's Chief Marketing Officer and Executive Lead for Inclusion and Diversity. This is Channel 4's first interview on this matter. I asked him, what's gone wrong?
Well, Peter, if I may start by just saying how deeply sorry we are at the disruption to access services. And I really do appreciate how difficult and frustrating this has been for viewers and for their families. There was, as you say, a trigger of the fire suppression system at the broadcast centre that transmits our services. It did cause significant damage to our systems, and that's meant we've had to build a completely new system. Of course, we do have a backup, but unfortunately, as we switch to that backup, part of the backup system that provides access services also failed. So we've been working literally around the clock since that incident, but unfortunately it's been extremely complex technically.
But just tell us, what has this actually meant in terms of accessible programmes for viewers with a hearing and a sight loss?
So firstly, in terms of audio descriptive services, this is an area where historically Channel 4 has had about 40% of our programmes audio described, which is well ahead of Ofcom's 10% target and higher than any other broadcaster. Unfortunately, we don't have the capability to serve them at the moment from the emergency backup. You also asked about subtitles, and subtitles, I'm pleased to say, is a better story. We are now restored to subtitling on our main channels. For clarity, that doesn't include our +1 channels or FreeSat, but on our main channels, we now have subtitles back, I'm pleased to say.
But not signing?
We have difficulty with audio description, including sign language services.
Now, Ofcom have been critical. They told us in a statement, we remain extremely concerned by the lack of audio description on Channel 4, which is causing deep upset and frustration among people who are blind or partially sighted. Channel 4 did not have strong backup measures in place, and it shouldn't have taken several weeks to provide a clear public plan and timeline for fixing the problem. And they go on to say, we expect Channel 4 to meet or exceed the timings it has set for restoring audio description to programmes, and we will then consider any further action. How do you react to that?
Well, a few weeks ago, you had an article on your show about audio description where Ofcom described that Channel 4 massively exceeds their requirements. That's a situation we intend to get back to as fast as possible by mid-November. We recognise we're also going to have a backlog which we're committed to correct, so that we'll have audio description on all programmes which should have had it.
But how come there are no backup arrangements for subtitling and audio description, you know, for when things go down, as they inevitably will from time to time?
Well, as described, Peter, there are backups. We regularly rehearse what happens in the case of needing a backup. We did so just before the Tokyo Paralympics. Unfortunately, this incident lay in the connection between our emergency backup and the broadcast distribution. So that isn't something that could have been tested in advance without interrupting all of our programming. And unfortunately, that meant that the backup itself failed. This is obviously an unforeseen and deeply unfortunate incident. And that's why we're working hard to put it right as soon as possible.
Ofcom has also criticised your communication with viewers over this period. They obviously feel that you've not explained fully enough and quickly enough what was going on.
Well, I'm sorry, I think we could have done a better job of communicating at the start of this, but we've now moved to posting regular updates, including, by the way, subtitled and sign language videos, as well as on-air updates, so that our viewers are informed at the progress we're making.
Will you be making changes after this experience?
We're always looking at how to improve our access services, and we're always looking at how to make sure that these events don't occur. It's deeply regrettable, and it's part of what we're doing to invest in a new programme of technology, which will go live in 2022, allowing us to have 2 different locations in the UK for access services, and that will allow us to switch to one if the other one has problems.
Zaid Al-Kassab, thank you very much indeed. Now, we're all having to get used to the idea that there are some big and necessary changes coming to the way we live and consume resources if we want to preserve a recognisable lifestyle. Not to mention protecting the planet for generations to come. But in our haste to do this, are some of the considerations designed to make the environment more sensitive to the needs of disabled people being forgotten or pushed aside? Well, we'll be discussing that with 2 experts in the field of sustainability and inclusion in a moment. But first, our reporter Fern Lulham has been out on the streets of London exploring the kind of issues we mean with visually impaired pedestrians.
I think the bus is just pulling up now. So brace yourself.
What might sound like the simple business of boarding a bus in London has become something of a leap of faith for local resident Hyacinth Malcolm, as she now has to cross a busy cycle lane in order to do so.
I've got no functional vision whatsoever. Everything is just grey. Not knowing if a bicycle is coming because I don't know whether they slow down or not. I just don't feel safe, so I'd rather take a taxi where I'm going. Until I get back into my flat, I just feel stressed out. There's no way to live your life. What they've done is just taken our independence away. And it's not just me. Other people with mobility issues, it can't be good for them either.
We're actually standing on the pavement now opposite a floating bus stop, but in order to get to it, we'd of course have to cross this busy cycle lane. So Hyacinth, what does that mean for you when you use this bus?
So when you get off the bus, if the cyclists are coming and they're not stopping, somebody like myself, I'll probably get knocked over.
I took a walk around Hyacinth's local area with her to find out what other issues she encounters on a daily basis.
The electric bicycles, you don't hear them. Electric cars, you don't hear them. I mean, the road I live on is a very busy road, and I don't always know on my road if the cars are coming or not. And if electric cars or electric bicycles are coming and I'm trying to get across my road, I can't hear them.
So I'm pretty sure we just narrowly avoided an e-scooter fly past there.
Lower traffic areas where items are placed to block off roads, but often moved by motorists onto the pavements, can make a walk to work feel more like tackling an obstacle course. I asked Hyacinth how she negotiates this situation.
I don't know how to describe it because it happens so often. I'm still in motion, but the cane stops. So I end up either jarring my wrist and my shoulder because, of course, the cane gets tangled up. We have to use the side of buildings as a shoreline, and if there's an A-board there, it just throws you all together.
And this is only likely to get worse, as charging points for electric cars and loose cables running across pavements can also cause problems, as I found out the hard way.
Oh, found the charging point. They're quite big, actually, and they're on the pavement. So yeah, you could definitely walk straight into one.
In order to encourage cycling over using cars, more bike lanes are also being slotted into pathways in parks. So it's one side of the path for pedestrians and the other side for cyclists.
The worst thing is I can hear the bell, but I have no idea which direction it's coming from. Oh, Nancy, keep over. And they're gone.
I also spoke to another London resident who's suffering from the sustainability measures being heightened. Kate Portal is totally blind and told me how the problem is affecting her everyday journeys.
I've had to change my route entirely since these alterations were made. I've had to find it as a totally blind person I think it's a bit of a pipe dream, this idea that pedestrians and cyclists can all wash around together and in harmony. If you're walking along the pavement, there's very little definition onto the bike lane. So you could veer onto a bike lane. It's not at all clear. In a way, I do think society owes it to disabled people who have acquired the ability to get around in a self-sufficient way. Why do we have to take a step backwards and be lumbered with something that would be unsafe for us to deal with? I kind of feel, we're very near the bottom of the heap.
What do you see as being the solution to all of these various problems?
There's a ton of work to be done about being able to detect whether the bike lanes are empty or not, better definition between pavements and cycle lanes. I'm personally amazed that cyclists aren't being encouraged to use quiet routes, that everything has to be rebuilt for them. And that in itself uses carbon. And also, they're a lot easier to hear on a quieter road. The bicycling is quite intrusive and sometimes quite dangerous.
Overall, it seems that people with visual impairments are as keen as anyone else that action is taken on climate change. But they're equally keen for things like cycle lanes on pavements to be considered in tandem with accessibility. As for me, I personally had a fairly pressing problem at hand.
OK, Nancy, so now we just need to get home. And I don't think we're taking the bus, are we? Come on, then. Come on. Good girl.
Fern Lulham with Kate and Hyacinth. Now, two people who've been doing some serious thinking and talking about these issues have been listening to that. Let me bring in Anne Fry first. Anne is an international specialist on the transport needs of disabled and older people who worked for many years at the Department of Transport to put in place many improvements to inclusion policy and has subsequently led projects for the United Nations, the European Commission and the European Science Foundation. And she's now turning her attention to accessible air travel. Anne, do those experiences you've just heard sound familiar?
I'm afraid they do, very familiar. It's a pattern now that cyclists are regarded as the most vulnerable road users. And to my mind, that's, yes, of course they're vulnerable, but pedestrians are far more vulnerable, and particularly those with disabilities. So I think we've somehow got the priority wrong. And the experiences we've just heard are happening all over the country all the time.
I mean, we heard Kate say that we'd gone backwards. Do you think that's true? And I wonder how you feel about that, given all the work that you've been doing, through most of your career.
Frankly, it's very dispiriting. And I think we have gone backwards because I think there is such a preoccupation among local authorities and others, first for the sustainability agenda, which I think we all agree is important, as part of that, to promote cycling above all else. And that's where you get these, frankly, monstrous things like floating bus stops, where you have to cross a cycle lane to get from the pavement to the bus. How can that possibly be safe? And it's been done to create greater safety for the cyclist, which is fabulous, but it shouldn't be done at the expense of vulnerable pedestrians.
But of course, that's not the only thing that's been done in the name of sustainability, is it? We've had e-scooters, we've got the development of the electric car, we heard about the problem with charging points as well. So there are a lot of things, and there are good reasons for them, which makes it difficult to put the kind of argument that you're putting, doesn't it?
Well, I'm not sure it is such a difficult argument because, after all, everybody's personal mobility is important. And e-scooters give freedom and no doubt fun to some people, but at the huge expense of other people. And also, if you look at things like electric vehicle charging points, frankly, anyone who's on their mobile phone, which is most people, are going to trip over cables before long. So, why are we not thinking this through before we introduce them? That's all I'm asking.
But you've argued that many green schemes that were implemented quickly during the COVID pandemic are now being made permanent without assessing the implications for disabled, visually impaired, elderly people. Is there a way around that? Because people think we're in a hurry. They're being told we're in a hurry.
Indeed, but I think the root of it must lie in talking to people, in consulting people. And what I don't think works is waiting till you've introduced some radical new scheme and then talking to the people on the street. What you need to do is talk to what I call the silent voices, the people who've been frightened and are no longer out there for fear of falling or being knocked over. And I know that, by definition, it's difficult to talk to the people who are not there. But until you do that, you're not going to understand the implication of what you're doing.
Right, now the UN Climate Change Conference, or COP26, is set to begin in Glasgow this weekend. It's being seen as the last opportunity to make a real difference to the crisis we're now facing. Ian McKinnon started his working life as a product design engineer. He is a co-founder of something called the Global Disability Innovation Hub, and he'll be part of a panel at COP26 that will consider the importance of inclusive design and climate resilience. So first, Ian, what does the Global Disability Innovation Hub actually do in this area?
We work across different themes, one of which is inclusive design and one of which is climate and crisis resilience. We work very hard on our projects internationally to make sure that, as we've been discussing, inclusive design is embedded at the very start of the process, that there is excellent engagement, genuine engagement of disabled people throughout the entire process from beginning to end. And I guess what we've been seeing in some of the work we've been doing, that's not always been the case. And so we're trying to kind of bring the two things together. They're both incredibly important topics and issues. There's clearly a very real need to intervene and actually, the people that are responsible for some of these interventions to make them aware of the importance of good inclusive design and to bring it to bear.
Just staying with you for a minute, Ian, this is being tied to COP26 where you're doing your talk. World leaders have got a lot on their plates with this crisis, and there's going to be a lot of high-powered pushing and shoving, people trying to do the best for their country. How seriously do you think we can get the ultimate decision makers to take the problem of disability access? Isn't it a long way down the agenda?
Well, it perhaps feels that way now, and perhaps that is true. We hope that that's changing, though, and there's ourselves and a few others who are present at COP this year, I believe for the first time, really putting disability on the agenda, we believe is a change in that. And if you think about it in terms of infrastructure, let's say, it's important to get it right first time. That's where the value is. Otherwise, it's going to incur significant costs further down the line if you don't do it right first time. To do it right first time is to do it inclusively. And that's very important. And I think that gets people's attention.
And just going back to you finally, I'm sure you'd agree with that. But with all your long experience in this field, what do you think are the most important things to come out of this conference?
It has to be that we need to include everyone from the outset and not be panicked into what look like smart, quick wins on sustainability. So, unless you've got everybody on board, you shouldn't be going ahead.
Well, we will have to see where it goes. People will be hoping, I guess, for some fairly revolutionary changes. Ian McKinnon, Anne Fry, thank you very much indeed. And that's all for today. Your thoughts and experiences about anything you've heard on tonight's programme are always welcome. You can email bbc.co.uk or leave a voice message on 0161 836 1338 or go to our website bbc.co.uk/in touch, where you can download tonight's and previous editions of the programme. From me, Peter Wight, producer Beth Hemmings and studio managers John Cole and Carwyn Griffith, goodbye.